Okay, so quickly, first off, right off the bat, I have not had an opportunity to start up any franchise modes yet. This is because the rosters we've done with the prospects, with the updating of the potentials of all the players that already exist in the game, that's not done. So before we do any franchise mode with the Canucks, the Habs, the Leafs, the Senators, etc., we need to get the rosters all set and done. But with season modes like this where the fantasy draft is on, the rosters don't really matter, which is why we're doing Chicago gameplay in this one because, hey, we're talking about the Chicago Blackhawks at the very least. Even though we're focusing mostly on the Canadiens, this is just kind of how it is. I can't really get some actual Habs footage that I'm happy with until we get a franchise mode up and running, and that's not going to happen until we finalize the roster. So, today we're talking about a few Canadiens things, and one of those things relates to the Chicago Blackhawks. First off, it is Kaiden Guhle. Yes, he is the brand new Montreal Canadien in town, taken in the first round, 16th overall by the Montreal Canadiens at the most recent 2020 NHL Entry Draft. Now, for Kaiden Guhle, he was a guy whom a lot of people were somewhat surprised by when it came to the pick, because I was expecting, just like a lot of other Habs fans were expecting, the Montreal Canadiens to actually take a forward. We made a video a few days before the draft talking about 3 forwards whom the Canadiens apparently had a ton of interest in. They were Rodion Amirov, who went to the Maple Leafs a pick earlier. You had Dawson Mercer in there, who eventually became a New Jersey Devil, and you have Jacob Perreault, who went a little bit further down. People thought the Habs were taking a forward, but they didn't. They took Kaiden Guhle instead, who was noted by many as a guy who didn't really have the highest upside. When you take a look at guys like Dawson Mercer, Rodion Amirov, and Perreault, and you see guys who have the potential to be great, but who are, in some capacity, able to not pan out entirely too. Kaiden Guhle is kind of the opposite. He's one of these low-ceiling, high-floor kind of guys who will probably make it in the NHL eventually as a top 4 D-man at best, but as an NHL D-man at worst, regardless. So the Canadiens with this pick, what they did was they went for the safety rather than the upside. It's a very big contrast to what they did last year, where they took probably the guy with the highest ceiling available at that 15th overall spot in Cole Caulfield, but the reason he was even available at 15 is because of the uncertainties of his game. But according to this article over here on The Athletic, which is written by Scott Powers and Mark Lazarus, apparently there was another team that was involved with Kaiden Guhle earlier in that spot too. Now, I note this every single time we bring up The Athletic, but we almost never discuss straight-up material from The Athletic because it's paid-for content, but this excerpt that we're going to read was posted onto Reddit, and plus, this one excerpt does not encapsulate the entire idea of the article, nor does it encapsulate everything that the article goes to say. So, we'll leave a link in the description to this article over here, a recipe for disaster, what league sources are saying about the Blackhawks, and we'll focus on one aspect here, talking about Kaiden Guhle. One league source insisted that the Chicago Blackhawks actually wanted Kaiden Guhle in the first round. They saw him as a big puck-dislodging defenseman, and they wanted to use him to complement guys like Boqvist and Mitchell. The source believed Montreal was willing to trade down for a 3rd or 4th round pick, but that the Blackhawks were told the Habs would be taking a forward. They ended up taking Guhle, which is why the Blackhawks took Lukas Reichel immediately after. And that's funny, because it's not even just me, it's not just you, it's not the media who are the only ones that thought that the Habs were going to take a forward. It was the Chicago Blackhawks, the team picking right after at 17th overall. And they really wanted Guhle, and it's apparent that the Montreal Canadiens really did too. This is what Mitch Brown, who was working with elite prospects on the draft, said about the pick. Montreal hoped that the player they wanted at 9th overall, which was going to be their original draft spot had they not advanced into the Stanley Cup Playoffs, was still available at 16. That player could only be Guhle. So that's kind of why people earlier on, before the draft even happened, were saying things like, I wouldn't be surprised if Guhle went top 10, even though he doesn't have the highest ceiling out of all the guys in the draft. This is a guy whom teams like, and that's why If you're willing to go with him at 9 and he's available at 16, hey, Marc Bergevin, go up there, do your thing, make your choice. They went up there with 3 minutes left on the podium and then they made the pick. So you can kind of tell that they were really confident in it. As for the Blackhawks, though, it's apparent that Montreal just didn't have Guhle on their radar, according to what the Blackhawks were thinking, but they got absolutely cucked immediately afterwards because Guhle was the guy that they wanted instead. Not disrespecting Lukas Reichel. This guy's a great player. It's funny how they really wanted the other guy that they didn't even think was going to be taken by Montreal 1 pick ahead of them. So, that wraps up the Chicago Blackhawks part of this video. I'm gonna keep the Blackhawks gameplay on. This is a pretty good gameplay. It's one of the first ones we got on NHL 21. I'm just starting up this new season mode with the fantasy draft, and this one was a pretty good one, so we can all watch this one here together. Let's talk a little bit about a few more Habs stuff. First off, Jesperi Kotkaniemi. He is no longer going to be over here in North America. He is going back over to the Finnish Porin Asat team. Now, cue all the puns you want to make about the name of this hockey club. But at the end of the day, this is a team in the Finnish Liiga. This is where Jesperi Kotkaniemi played his draft year, and it's where he looked very good in his draft year, mind you. And now he's going back. He'll be loaned over. There'll probably be some NHL out clause once the NHL season starts. He'll probably get recalled and get brought back to the NHL and play with the Habs. But, of course, as we've been saying about all these other prospects, guys from Detroit, guys from Edmonton, etc., going over to Europe and playing while the NHL is in its downtime is not a bad thing. Especially for a Jesperi Kotkaniemi who stopped playing NHL hockey, or at least in his case, AHL hockey, back in the spring. Then he paused up for half a year, and then he played in the playoffs. He was really good in the playoffs against Philadelphia, and now he's taken a quick break, and now he's going back into hockey action, playing against Finnish men. The AHL is seen as a league that is somewhat above the Finnish Liiga in terms of overall quality. And just based off of how he was a point-per-game player in the AHL when he was there earlier this year, even though the 1 goal he scored was an empty net, and just considering the fact that he was really, really good in the postseason against Philadelphia, I'm really excited to see what a rested, determined, and eager Jesperi Kotkaniemi can do against other guys who are supposed to be of lower caliber talent compared to NHL athletes. So for Kotkaniemi, man, this is going to be great to see what he's going to be able to go up to. It'll be nice to diversify the overall hockey playing experience from NHL to AHL to NHL playoffs to Finnish Liiga and then going back to the NHL. Diversifying your options, in my opinion, is not really a bad thing. Now, though, the final piece of Habs talk we're going to have here today, we're talking about Alexander Gordin. And yeah, this isn't a Kaiden Guhle, this is not a Jesperi Kotkaniemi. This is another one of these Montreal Canadiens prospects that was drafted most recently in the 2020 NHL Entry Draft. He's the Arsen Kusamutinov pick of this year's NHL draft for the Canadiens. He was born in 2001, July 31st, and he was drafted in 2020 in the 6th round, meaning that he was an overager. We spoke about this briefly, or did we? I don't even know if we made a video about Gordin, actually, because I'm pretty sure the pick they got to get this guy was traded for after we made our videos. But Gordin is indeed a Russian player playing in the MHL, the VHL, and the KHL, and he recently wrapped himself up a hat trick where he scored 3 goals, and they were all very nice. He scored 40 goals in the MHL last season, and he's absolutely got a very, very good ability to score. Man. You take a look at some of the highlights of this guy, you read the scouting reports, and you come away with the conclusion that this guy knows how to shoot a puck. He knows how to get it on a stick, quickly whip it towards the goal, and it goes in a lot. Taking a look at his stat line last season, 40 goals in 59 games in the MHL. My goodness. By no means is a guy like Alexander Gordin guaranteed to making the NHL, but at the very least, from guys you draft in the 6th round, you want to see them exhibit success like Gordin has had. He had played 7 periods of MHL action this year, and he's at 5 points. He's doing really well against his own age group. So going up against the VHL and the KHL, we'll see what Gordin is able to do going into the long-term future, but that kind of wraps up our video here today. I hope you're not super disturbed by the Chicago Blackhawks gameplay in the background, mostly because I cannot record Habs, Canucks, Red Wings, Leafs, or Sens gameplay yet, but once we get our rosters done, once we update everything, once we do all the potentials, and once we create all the guys that need to be created, we're going to be getting onto that pronto. So talk to me in the comments what you think about, first off, Kaiden Guhle and the Blackhawks, second off, Kotkaniemi and the Finnish Hockey League, and thirdly, Alexander Gordin, the unexpected 6th-round pick who is doing his thing back in Russia. Talk to me in the comments. Hope you enjoyed this edition of That Show 99, and bye.